Hello, and welcome back to Storytime with Eric Zimmer. Where we last left off in the wonderful story of Henry Sugar, like I said, he had been reading the report Dr. John F. Cartwright wrote about Imrat Khan, the man who sees without his eyes. And Imrat Khan, the Indian man himself, had just finished explaining his whole backstory to the doctor and how he was able to learn to see without his eyes. And soon, there's a little more to be explained here, but then we'll go back to the main story of Henry Sugar. You ready? Sure? Alright, let's begin. Chapter 7. That night I didn't go to bed. I was far too worked up to sleep. I had just witnessed a miracle. This man would have doctors all over the world turning somersaults in the air. He could change the whole course of medicine. From a doctor's point of view, he must be the most valuable man alive. We doctors must get hold of him and keep him safe. We must look after him. We mustn't let him go. We must find out exactly how it is that an image can be sent to the brain without using the eyes. And if we do that, then blind people might be able to see and deaf people might be able to hear. Above all, this incredible man must not be ignored and left to wander around India, living in cheap rooms and playing in second-rate theaters. I got so steamed up thinking about this that after a while I grabbed a notebook and a pen and started writing down with great care everything that Imrat Khan had told me that evening. I used the notes I had made while he was talking. I wrote for 5 hours without stopping, and at 8 o'clock the next morning, when it was time to go to the hospital, I had finished the most important part. The pages you have just read. At the hospital that morning, I didn't see Dr. Marshall until we met in the doctor's restroom during our tea break. I told him as much as I could in the 10 minutes we had to spare. I'm going back to the theater tonight, I said. I must talk to him again. I must persuade him to stay here. We mustn't lose him now. I'll come with you, Dr. Marshall said. Right, I said. We'll watch the show first and then we'll take him out to supper. At 6:45 that evening, I drove Dr. Marshall in my car to Acacia Road. I parked the car and the two of us walked over to the Royal Palace Hall. There's something wrong, I said. Where is everybody? There was no crowd outside the hall, and the doors were closed. The poster advertising the show was still in place, but now I saw that someone had written across it in large printed letters, using black paint, the words, "Tonight's performance cancelled." There was an old gatekeeper standing by the locked doors. What happened? I asked him. Someone died, he said. Who? I asked, already knowing who it was. The man who sees without using his eyes, the gatekeeper said. But how did he die? I cried. When? Where? He died in his bed, the gatekeeper said. He went to sleep and never woke up. These things happen. We walked slowly back to the car. I felt an overwhelming sense of grief and anger. I should never have allowed this precious man to go home last night. I should have kept him. I should have given him my bed and taken care of him. I shouldn't have let him out of my sight. Imrat Khan was a maker of miracles. He had communicated with mysterious and dangerous forces that are beyond the reach of ordinary people. He had also broken all the rules. He had performed miracles in public. He had taken money for doing so. And, worst of all, he told him some of those secrets to an outsider. Me. Now he was dead. So, that's that, Dr. Marshall said. Yes, I said. It's all over. Nobody will ever know how he did it. This is a true and accurate report of everything that took place concerning my 2 meetings with Imrat Khan. Signed, Dr. John F. Cartwright, M.D., Bombay, December 4th, 1934. Chapter 8. And now we go back to the original story with Henry Sugar. Well, 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 said Henry Sugar. Now that is extremely interesting. He closed the exercise book and sat gazing at the rain splashing against the windows of the library. This, Henry Sugar went on, talking aloud to himself, is a terrific piece of information. It could change my life. The piece of information Henry was referring to was that Imrat Khan had trained himself to read the value of a playing card from the reverse side, and Henry, the gambler, the rather dishonest gambler, had realized at once that if only he could train himself to do the same thing, he could make a fortune. For a few moments, Henry allowed his mind to dwell upon the marvelous things he would be able to do if he could read cards from the back. He would win every single time at canasta and bridge and poker. And better still, he would be able to go into any casino in the world and clean up at blackjack and all the other high-powered card games they played. In gambling casinos, as Henry knew very well, nearly everything depended in the end upon the turn of a single card, and if you knew beforehand what the value of that card was, then you were home and dry. But could he do it? Could he actually train himself to do this thing? He didn't see why not. That stuff with the candle flame didn't appear to be particularly hard work. And according to the book, that was really all there was to it. Just staring into the middle of the flame and trying to concentrate upon the face of the person you loved best. It would probably take him several years to bring it off. But then who in the world wouldn't be willing to train for a few years in order to beat the casinos every time he went in? By golly, he said aloud, I'll do it! I'm going to do it! He sat very still in the armchair in the library, working out a plan of campaign. Above all, he would tell nobody what he was up to. He would steal the little book from the library so that none of his friends might come upon it by chance and learn the secret. He would carry the book with him wherever he went. It would be his Bible. He couldn't possibly go out and find a real live yogi to instruct him, so the book would be his yogi instead. It would be his teacher. Henry stood up and slipped the slim blue exercise book under his jacket. He walked out of the library and went straight upstairs to the bedroom they had given him for the weekend. He got out his suitcase and hid the book underneath his clothes. He then went downstairs again and found his way to the butler's pantry. John, he said, addressing the butler, can you find me a candle? Just an ordinary white candle. Butlers were trained never to ask for reasons. They simply obeyed orders. Do you wish a candle holder as well, sir? Yes, a candle and a candle holder. Very good, sir. Shall I bring them to your room? No, I'll hang around here till you find them. The butler soon found a candle and a candle holder. Henry said, And now could you find me a ruler? The butler found him a ruler. Henry thanked him and returned to his bedroom. When he was inside the bedroom, he locked the door. He drew all the curtains so that his place was in twilight. He put the candle holder with the candle in it on the dressing table and pulled up a chair. When he sat down, he noticed with satisfaction that his eyes were exactly level with the wick of the candle. Now, using the ruler, he positioned his face 16 inches from the candle, which again was what the book had said he must do. What had said must be done. That Indian fellow had visualized the face of the person he loved best, which in his case was a brother. Henry didn't have a brother. He decided instead to visualize his own face. With his cigarette lighter, he lit the wick. A yellow flame appeared and burned steadily. Henry sat quite still and stared at the candle flame. The book had been quite right. The flame, when you looked into it closely, did have 3 separate parts. There was the yellow outside, then there was the mauve inner sheath, and right in the middle was the tiny magic area of absolute blackness. He stared at the tiny black area. He focused his eyes upon it and kept staring at it, and as he did so, an extraordinary thing happened. His mind went absolutely blank, and his brain ceased fidgeting around, and all at once it felt as though he himself, his whole body, was actually encased within the flame, sitting snug and cozy within the little black area of nothingness. With no trouble at all, Henry allowed the image of his own face to swim into the sight before him. He concentrated upon the face and nothing but the face. He blocked out all other thoughts. He succeeded completely in doing this, but only for about 15 seconds. After that, his mind began to wander, and he found himself thinking about gambling casinos and how much money he was going to win. At this point, he looked away from the candle and gave himself a rest. This was his very first effort. He was thrilled. He had done it. Admittingly, he hadn't kept it up for very long, but neither had that Indian fellow on the first attempt. After a few minutes, he tried again. It went well. He had no stopwatch to time himself, but he sensed that this was definitely a longer go than the first one. "It's terrific," he cried. "I'm going to succeed. I'm going to do it." He had never been so excited by anything in his life. From that day on, no matter where he was or what he was doing, Henry made a point of practicing with the candle every morning and every evening. Often he practiced at midday as well. For the first time in his life, he was throwing himself into something with genuine enthusiasm, and the progress he made was remarkable. After 6 months, he could concentrate absolutely upon his own face for no less than 3 minutes without a single outside thought entering his mind. The yogi of hardware had told the Indian fellow that a man would have to practice for 15 years to get that sort of result. But wait! The yogi had also said something else. He had said, and here Henry eagerly consulted the little blue exercise book for the 100th time, he had said that on extremely rare occasions, a person comes along who is able to develop the power in only 1 or 2 years. "That's me!" Henry cried. "It must be. I am the 1 in a million person who is gifted with the ability to acquire yoga powers at incredible speed. Whoopee and hooray! It won't be long now before I'm breaking the bank in every casino in Europe and America." But Henry, at this point, showed unusual patience and good sense. He didn't rush to get out a pack of cards to see if he could read them from the reverse side. In fact, he kept well away from card games of all kinds. He'd given up bridge and canasta and poker as soon as he had started working with the candle. What's more, he had given up racing around to parties and weekends with his rich friends. He had become dedicated to this single aim of acquiring yoga powers, and everything else would have to wait until he had succeeded. Sometime during the 10th month, Henry became aware, just as Zimmer Khan had done before him, of a slight ability to see an object with his eyes closed. When he closed his eyes and stared at something hard, with fierce concentration, he could actually see the outline of the object he was looking at. "It's coming to me," he cried. "I'm doing it. It's fantastic." Now he worked harder than ever at his exercises with the candle, and at the end of the first year he could actually concentrate upon the image of his own face for no less than 5.5 minutes. At this point he decided the time had come to test himself with the cards. He was in the living room of his London flat when he made his decision, and it was near midnight. He got out a pack of cards and a pencil and paper. He was shaking with excitement. He placed the pack upside down before him and concentrated on the top card. All he could see at first was the design on the back of the card. It was a very ordinary design of thin red lines, one of the most playing card designs in the world. He now shifted his concentration from the pattern itself to the other side of the card. He concentrated with great intensity upon the invisible underneath of the card, and he allowed no other single thought to creep into his mind. 30 seconds went by. Then 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Henry didn't move. His concentration was intense and absolute. He was visualizing the reverse side of the playing card. No other thought of any kind was allowed to enter his head. During the 4th minute, something began to happen. Slowly, magically, but very clearly, the black symbols became spades, and alongside the spades appeared the figure 5. The 5 of spades. Henry switched off his concentration. And now with shaking fingers, he picked up the card and turned it over. It was the 5 of spades. "I've done it!" he cried aloud, leaping from his chair. "I've seen through it! I'm on my way!" After resting for a while, he tried again, and this time he used a stopwatch to see how long it took him. After 3 minutes and 58 seconds, he read the card as the King of Diamonds. He was right. The next time he was right again, and it took him 3 minutes and 54 seconds. That was 4 seconds less. He was sweating with excitement and exhaustion. "That's enough for today," he told himself. He got up and poured himself an enormous drink of whiskey and sat down to rest and to gloat over his success. His job now, he told himself, was to keep practicing and practicing with the cards until he could see through them instantly. He was convinced it could be done. Already on the second try, he had knocked 4 seconds off his time. He would give up working with the candle and concentrate solely upon the cards. He would keep at it day and night. And that is what he did. But now that he could smell real success in the offing, he became more fanatical than ever. He never left his flat except to buy food and drink. All day and often far into the night, he crouched over the cards with the stopwatch beside him, trying to reduce the time it took him to read from the reverse side. Within a month, he was down to 1.5 minutes. At the end of 6 months of fierce, concentrated work, he could do it in 20 seconds. But even that is too long. When you are gambling in a casino and the dealer is waiting for you to say yes or no to the next card, you are not going to be allowed to stare at it for 20 seconds before making up your mind. 3 or 4 seconds would be permissible, but no more. Henry kept at it, but from now on it became more and more difficult to improve his speed. To get down from 20 seconds to 19 took him a week of very hard work. From 19 to 18 took him nearly 2 weeks. And 7 more months went by before he could read through a card in 10 seconds flat. His target was 4 seconds. Henry knew that unless he could see through a card in a maximum of 4 seconds, he wouldn't be able to work the casinos successfully. Yet the nearer he got towards the target, the more difficult it became to reach it. It took 4 weeks to get his time down from 10 seconds to 9, and 5 more weeks to go from 9 to 8. But at this stage, hard work no longer bothered him. His powers of concentration had now developed to such a degree that he was able to work for 12 seconds at a stretch with no trouble at all. And he knew with absolute certainty that he would get there in the end. He would not stop until he did. Day after day, night after night, he sat crouching over the cards with his stopwatch beside them, fighting with a terrible intensity to knock those last few stubborn seconds off his time. The last 3 seconds were the worst of all. To get down from 7 seconds to his target of 4 took him exactly 11 months. The great excitement came on a Saturday evening. A card lay down on the table in front of him. He clicked a stopwatch and began to concentrate. At once he saw a blob of red. The blob swiftly took shape and became a diamond. And then almost instantaneously a figure 6 appeared in the top left-hand corner. He clicked the watch again. He checked the time. It was 4 seconds. He had turned the card over. It was the 6 of diamonds. He had done it. He had it in 4 seconds flat. He tried again with another card. In 4 seconds he read it as the Queen of Spades. He went right through the pack, timing himself with every card. 4 seconds, 4 seconds, 4 seconds. It was always the same. He had done it at last. It was all over. He was ready to go. And how long it had taken him? It had taken him exactly 3 years and 3 months of concentrated work. And now for the casinos. When should he start? Why not tonight? Tonight was Saturday. All the casinos were crowded on Saturday nights. So much the better. There'd be less chance of becoming conspicuous. He went into his bedroom to change into his dinner jacket and black tie. Saturday was a dressy night at the big London casinos. He would go, he decided, to Lord's house. There are well over 100 legitimate casinos in London, but none of them is open to the general public. You must become a member before you are allowed to walk in. Henry was a member of no less than 10 casinos. Lord's house was his favorite. It was the finest and most exclusive in the country. To be continued.